Congress is busy. The January 6th committee tonight has begun releasing transcripts in the evening here, and it includes interviews with some key coup plotters, including those who took the Fifth. Meanwhile, Congress will hear from Zelensky tonight. This is one of those rare times where most members will actually come and sit on the floor together. The kind of summit that's reserved for big speeches or the State of the Union or the certification of an election. Of course, the last time that type of gathering occurred, it was Trump fans who turned Congress into a horrific crime scene. That may even weigh on some members tonight on their minds as they gather, especially given the unprecedented response Congress just recommended for dealing with that insurrection. This week began the January 6th committee's deployment of its final meeting and its powers to formally refer Donald Trump for recommended prosecution. And for the weighty task of reading those charges, the committee tapped one of the body's top constitutional law scholars and our next guest, Congressman and longtime law professor Jamie Raskin.
There is more than sufficient evidence to refer former President Donald J. Trump, John Eastman, and others. This statute makes it a crime to conspire to defraud the United States. Anyone who incites, assists, or engages in insurrection against the United States of America.
Raskin accusing Donald Trump of breaking those laws, as the committee also prepares to release the rest of its final report supporting that very case tomorrow. Congressman Raskin, as promised, is our guest. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Ari.
Absolutely. When you formally read and issued those referrals Monday, why do you think you had a valid legal case? And I'm just curious personally, how did it feel actually doing it on Monday?
Well, I think it was Tocqueville who said that in America, every great question comes down to law. And we reduced the massive evidence we had received, more than 1,000 interviews, I think 1,200 interviews, 1 million pages worth of documents, and we reduced it in our thinking to an analysis of what the offenses were. And it came down to those 4 offenses. It was a clear attempt to interfere with a federal government proceeding. That was the whole point of stopping the steal. It was clearly an attempt to defraud the government by exchanging an honest election for a counterfeit election with fake electors and coercive force. It was the submission of fake documents to the government. And ultimately, it was aiding and abetting and assisting and inciting an insurrection against the United States. And that's a criminal offense since the Civil War, since that statute was put into place, implementing a number of different provisions in the Constitution, which make it a very serious offense against the United States to engage in insurrection, especially if you're sworn to uphold the Constitution as Donald Trump was.
And how'd you feel? Did you feel a sense of finality? Did you feel hope? Did you feel, as some have accused you of, did you feel vengeance and anger towards Donald Trump? What did you feel doing something that, again, as we live in unprecedented times, I guess it feels, but as you did something through the power of that committee that's never been done before, sir?
Well, I certainly felt no vengeance or anger. I feel a little bit of pity, I must say, for Donald Trump and for the people around him. But I felt a measure of closure and satisfaction about the question of individual accountability. And, justice in an individual case like that, anybody who has suffered, a crime or lost a loved one to a crime, that kind of justice never equals the sense of sadness and anger that you go through. And this is not equal to the immensity of the crime against American democracy, the assault against our officers. It doesn't equal up. So for me, the work that I want to pour myself into now is the collective accountability. Let's fortify American democracy against the coups and insurrections and political violence and electoral sabotage that's coming from these people. Let's hope that the criminal prosecution scares a lot of them off. But the truth is that Donald Trump's party, which, alas, is the same party that used to belong to Abraham Lincoln. It used to be an anti-slavery, pro-freedom, pro-democracy party, and now it is a paranoid cult of authoritarian personality. But that party thrives on anti-democracy, on voter suppression, on gerrymandering, on filibuster, on manipulation of the Electoral College, and we need to get democracy moving again. So we need statehood for the disenfranchised populations in Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. We need a constitutional amendment guaranteeing the right to vote. We need to repair the Voting Rights Act, which has been dismembered by the Supreme Court in the Shelby County versus Holder case. We need to get democracy moving in the right direction so we don't lapse back into all of the authoritarian stuff.
Yeah, I understand that, and that also goes to sort of where America is right now. There's also the criticism of the committee itself. The evidence that's emerged, the testimony, especially from a lot of Trump's own people, is under oath, and people can weigh it. And in that sense, it's been something that the nation, journalists, lawyers, and clearly the DOJ, they're interested in what you found, as we've been reporting, is there. That's sifting through that. Then there's the committee itself, which in some sense is you and your colleagues. And one of Donald Trump's lawyers, who I'm sure you know of, David Schoen, the impeachment defense lawyer for the second impeachment on the insurrection, he called some of the members out, including yourself by name, when he was on this channel last night. I wanted to give you the benefit of responding, but here's his criticism of the committee. Take a listen.
Of all people on Earth, why choose Chairman Thompson to head up this investigative committee when he filed a lawsuit personally attacking President Trump? How on earth can you expect the American public to accept that as a fair chairman of an investigation?
David,
Raskin and Schiff have written
I didn't know.
books
I thought you were going to go somewhere more credible. If there is a violent
That's
attack,
not credible. It's a conflict for Chairman Thompson
let me point
specifically.
You to some evidence.
It's the chairman for Raskin and Schiff who have written books about.
Let me point you to some
evidence. I didn't make the point. You perverted the point that I made.
No,
you said that I said Congress was conflicted.
Yes,
I spoke about some specific members who were chosen to, and Schiff and Raskin. They've written books about the events. They have a personal interest in hawking those books.
2 points here, Congressman. One, if you'd like the full tape or the video link, we can get that over to you to watch the rest of it. We spare you all of it. But on the more serious point, he did lodge a public criticism, and while I quibbled with him about the idea that members of Congress are automatically conflicted out of this kind of oversight or investigation, I want to give you the chance to respond, because this is out there, as you know. The Trump folks are saying, basically, in one sense or another, you, Chairman Thompson, and others have it out for him, and therefore you're not being fair. What is your response to the, shall we say, reasonable version of that criticism?
Okay, well, let's start with what that lawyer and Trump's lawyers agreed to during the Senate trial, which was this was the worst domestic violent attack on the U.S. Congress in an attempt to overthrow an election in American history, and it's just indisputable. And during the trial, they said they would never have anything good to say about it. So obviously they want to shift attention from the actual events to people who were investigating it. And all I'll say about that is that the Democrats in Congress agreed to the original Republican plan, which was to have an outside commission made up equal numbers of Republicans and Democrats with equal subpoena power. And you know who vetoed it? Donald Trump. Donald Trump told McCarthy and the Republicans he didn't want any investigation at all. At that point, after Benny Thompson, who was our representative, had agreed to the McCarthy plan and agreed with John Katko, who had been sent to negotiate it, they pulled the plug on their own plan, and they said they wouldn't do anything. Well, at that point, Pelosi said, we're going to have to do our own investigation with a bipartisan committee that we'll put together. They did everything they could to sabotage it, including trying to put on pro-insurrection Republican provocateurs to make a kangaroo court out of the whole thing. But Pelosi, to credit, said no. We have a bipartisan committee, and it impressed the American people because it showed how bipartisanship should really work. That is, we can get together to try to examine what the real facts are. And that we did, and that's what's driving them crazy.
Understood.